So, um, what if the ultimate life hack for our crazy 24/7 hustle culture isn't like a new productivity app or waking up at 4 a.m. to plunge into an ice bath?
Hmm.
What if it's actually a 2,500-year-old poem about, well, a puddle?
A puddle,
Yeah,
right?
a puddle. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We're really glad you're here with us today. We are looking at this fascinating stack of notes and excerpts centered on a truly ancient concept. And it promises what we're sort of calling low friction living.
Which I think we all desperately need right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to explore whether this incredibly old kind of poetic guide to moving through the world can actually survive contact with our modern hyper-connected reality.
Yeah, and we're focusing on a very specific, highly acclaimed text for this. We are looking at Stephen Mitchell's translation of Chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching.
Right.
And, ancient philosophy often gets this reputation for being overly abstract, I guess, or just totally detached from the nitty-gritty of, like, paying your bills and answering emails.
Yeah, like it belongs on a mountaintop, not in a cubicle.
Exactly. But what really stands out in the source notes regarding Mitchell's translation of this particular chapter is just how ruthlessly practical it is.
It really is.
I mean, it operates almost like a diagnostic tool for modern burnout. It totally challenges the foundational assumptions we hold about what success looks like and how we're supposed to achieve it.
Okay, let's unpack this. The goal for our deep dive today is to really get into the central metaphor driving this text, which is the idea that the supreme good is like water.
Right, the water metaphor.
Yeah. We want to figure out how shifting from a mindset of, like, force to a mindset of flow actually works mechanically in your daily life. And to do that, we kind of have to start by looking closely at the opening lines.
Right, right.
So Mitchell translates it like this, and I'm reading from the notes here. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to.
It sounds so peaceful, doesn't it?
It does. But then it immediately pivots into something deeply counterintuitive. The text says water is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus, it is like the Tao.
Yeah. And before we really dig into the psychology of those low places, we should probably briefly demystify that word, right? The Tao.
Yeah, definitely. Because that can throw people off.
For sure. So if you aren't familiar with the philosophy, you can think of the Tao simply as the underlying natural order of the universe. It's like the fundamental operating system of reality.
Operating system, I like that.
Right. It's the way things naturally behave when we aren't, trying to force them or manipulate them. So when the text says water is like the Tao, it's essentially telling us that water is a perfect physical representation of how to live in alignment with reality rather than, well, constantly fighting against it.
Which brings us to the fighting part. Because the text specifically highlights that water is content with the low places that people disdain.
Yeah.
And let's just contrast that with how we are currently wired to
No,
operate.
it's the exact opposite.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, think about your own career trajectory, or just look at the messaging we're bombarded with every single day. The entire structure of modern life is based on climbing.
Always climbing.
Right. We're told to climb the corporate ladder,
Mhm.
to secure the high ground in our political or personal arguments, to elevate our social status, to increase our follower counts. We view moving up as, like, the only valid direction.
Yeah.
And the low places, those are seen as failure. They're where you end up if you lose the game.
And what's fascinating here is that this is where the mechanism of the water metaphor becomes so crucial. I mean, think about the physics of climbing.
Okay.
Climbing requires exertion, right?
Yeah.
It requires this constant, unending input of energy just to fight gravity and maintain that elevated position.
Which is exhausting.
Right. That is the definition of force. And what the source notes highlight is that water operates on the exact opposite principle. It doesn't fight gravity, it utilizes it.
Yeah.
Water naturally seeks the lowest possible point. It just flows effortlessly into the valleys and crevices that people typically avoid or, look down upon.
So by relying on the natural pull of gravity instead of fighting it, water is conserving all its energy.
Exactly.
But, I mean, how does that translate to human behavior? Because I can't just literally roll down a hill and expect my life to get better, right?
I mean, you could try, but
Fair.
yeah.
But what does it actually mean to seek the low places psychologically? like in a practical sense?
Well, it translates into humility, into service, and really the intentional dropping of your ego.
Dropping the ego.
Yeah. Because when you are constantly fighting to reach the top of the social or professional pyramid, you're actually incredibly vulnerable. Your position is precarious.
Because everyone wants that spot.
Right. You have to spend half your energy just defending your spot from everyone else who's trying to climb over you. But if you willingly step down from that pedestal, if you embrace the low places by just not needing to be the smartest, the most powerful, or the most recognized person in the room, you undergo this massive psychological shift.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
The notes describe this as becoming unreachable by ego-driven conflict.
Unreachable, because, yeah, there is no pedestal to knock you off of. You are already standing firmly on the ground.
Right. If someone comes at you with this aggressive competitive energy, trying to prove they're superior, and your response is just a genuine, unthreatened, okay, you might be right, let's look at the facts, their aggression has absolutely nowhere to land.
They have no leverage.
None at all. By occupying the low place, you find a strength that is persistent and unstoppable, precisely because it isn't reliant on defending a precarious, elevated position. It is a fundamental shift from force, which is, fragile and exhausting to flow, which is grounded and highly resilient.
Okay, I want to pause for a second and just pose a question to you listening right now. Take a quick mental inventory of your week so far. How much energy, how many actual physical calories, and how much mental bandwidth have you spent fighting for the high ground at work or in your relationship, or even just agonizing over a perceived slight in your own head?
Probably a lot.
Right. What would the actual physical sensation be if you just let gravity do the work and allowed yourself to occupy the low place for a minute? Sounds like a massive relief.
It really does.
But, this is where I need to transition from the theory to the practice. A metaphor about water is beautiful, but how do we apply it to like a Tuesday morning when the inbox is overflowing and the kids are screaming?
Well, that is the genius of Mitchell's translation of Chapter 8. The middle section actually provides specific, actionable areas of life, and it pairs each one with a guiding principle for low-friction living.
Well, perfect. A checklist.
Exactly, a checklist. It moves from our external environment straight into our internal psychology. For instance, it starts with our physical space. The text says, and I quote, "In dwelling, live close to the ground."
Live close to the ground.
Oh, okay.
I read that as kind of a commentary on the physical environments we curate. Living close to the ground feels like an instruction to choose reality over status symbols.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Because we spend so much money and effort filling our homes with things designed to, project a specific image of success to other people, we build these intricate, elevated facades.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. So to live close to the ground would mean simplifying your environment so that it actually supports your practical daily needs rather than serving as like a museum of your ego.
It's really about rootedness. And what is fascinating is how quickly the text recognizes that our external environment is usually just a reflection of our internal environment.
Oh, absolutely.
Because immediately after telling us to simplify our dwelling, the text moves to our mental space. It advises, in thinking, keep to the simple.
Okay, I have to admit, this is the line in the text that feels like a personal attack.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely. I am a chronic overthinker.
Yeah.
If I get an ambiguous email from a colleague, I don't just read the words. I totally over-intellectualize it.
We all do it.
I'll play out like 12 different worst-case scenarios. I analyze the timing of the email, the fact that they didn't use an exclamation point at the end. I create massive mental complexity.
Right.
Why do our brains do this, and how does keeping to the simple actually work as a countermeasure?
Well, our brains over-intellectualize as a defense mechanism. It gives us this illusion of control.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, your brain thinks that if it can anticipate every possible negative outcome and, map out every complex variable, it can somehow protect you from getting hurt or surprised.
Which never actually works.
Never. In reality, all that mental spinning just drains your energy and paralyzes you. You're using force. So when the text advises us to keep our thinking simple, it's pointing right back to the water metaphor.
Right.
Water doesn't anticipate the exact shape of the rock it's about to encounter downstream. It doesn't write a 12-page contingency plan for hitting a boulder.
Right. It just hits the boulder, naturally flows around the path of least resistance, and keeps moving.
Yes, exactly. Keeping to the simple means dealing exclusively with the concrete facts in front of you right now, rather than the intricate, completely fictional narratives you're spinning about the future or the past.
So just looking at what is.
Right. It's asking yourself, what is actually happening in this exact moment, and what is my next immediate step? Everything else is just mental clutter.
Wow. And I guess if you can manage to declutter your physical space and then untangle that mental complexity, it naturally clears the way for the next principle on the checklist, which tackles our relationships.
Yeah, this is a big one.
The text says, in family life, be completely present. I find Mitchell's phrasing here so striking because, I mean, it feels like it was written yesterday, not thousands of years ago.
It is incredibly relevant. We are living through an absolute epidemic of fragmented attention.
Fragmented. Yes, that is the perfect way to describe it. We are physically sitting on the couch next to our partner or our kids, but mentally, we're 1,000 miles away.
We're scrolling through a feed.
Or we're still locked in that mental complexity we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Dwelling on a work conversation that ended 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If we map the water metaphor onto this, water isn't fragmented. It pools together. It gathers its entire volume in one single place. So radical presence is really about gathering all of your physical and mental resources into the exact room you're currently sitting in.
Right, because when you're fragmented, you aren't fully experiencing your family, and you certainly aren't effectively solving whatever work problem you're distracted by.
So you're just doing a bad job at both.
Exactly. You're just suspended in this state of high-friction anxiety.
Yeah.
Bringing your full, cohesive presence to the moment is a profoundly low-friction state, and that naturally leads right into how we're supposed to handle our professional lives.
Yeah.
The next piece of advice in the text is, in work, do what you enjoy.
Which, okay, sounds a bit like a cliche follow your passion poster you'd see in a school counselor's office.
It does, a bit.
But looking at the source notes, it goes way deeper than that.
Yeah.
Doing what you enjoy isn't about finding a job where you get to, I don't know, eat ice cream all day.
Exactly.
Right. It's about aligning your daily actions with your natural inclinations and aptitudes. It is the exact opposite of forcing yourself into a specific career mold just because it carries prestige or parental approval.
Yeah, fighting your nature.
Exactly. If you are naturally a creative, highly collaborative person, but you force yourself into a really rigid, isolated job just for the status, you are swimming upstream. Every single day requires immense force.
And eventually you burn out. There's no way around it. When your work aligns with your natural strengths, you're operating in flow. You still expend effort, of course, but it is an effort that generates energy rather than depleting it. It nourishes you.
Okay, I'm tracking with all of this so far. The mechanisms of simplicity, radical presence, aligning work with our nature, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But here is where I am going to push back hard on this ancient wisdom.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because the next item on the checklist tackles leadership. The text says, in governing, don't try to control.
Yes.
Now, hold on. If I am a project manager or if I'm running a whole company and I actively try not to control the outcome or my team, that sounds like a recipe for absolute chaos.
That sounds scary.
Deadlines will be missed. Budgets will completely explode. Somebody has to steer the ship. How can not trying to control possibly be practical advice in a modern corporate environment?
Well, I mean, if you equate governing with dictating every single action, then yeah, sure, it sounds like total negligence. But let's look at the mechanism of how water actually nourishes things, which was mentioned right in the opening line.
Okay.
Water doesn't grab a seed by the stem and forcefully pull it upward to make it grow. It can't dictate the exact angle the leaves are going to take.
That's true.
What it does is sink into the soil. It provides the essential nourishment and creates the exact environmental conditions required for growth to happen naturally.
Oh. So you're saying effective management isn't about controlling the person, it's about controlling the environment around the person.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think of it like the bumpers on a bowling lane.
Okay, I like that.
Right, because if you're managing a team, using force means you're trying to grab their arm, adjust their wrist, and basically throw the ball for them every single time.
Which is micromanagement.
Exactly. It's micromanagement. It is exhausting for you, and honestly, it infantilizes them. But if you act like the bumpers, you are governing without trying to control.
You're setting the boundaries.
Exactly. You set clear boundaries. You clear obstacles out of the lane. You provide the resources they need, and then you step back and let their natural momentum carry the ball down the lane. They might bounce off the bumpers a bit, but they won't go in the gutter.
That is such a brilliant way to frame it. You're trusting the environment you built, rather than trying to micromanage the variables.
Yeah.
I can really see how, neurologically, micromanaging creates this massive cognitive load. I mean, you are trying to predict and control the behavior of other human beings, which is literally impossible.
Totally impossible.
Dropping that need for absolute control sounds terrifying at first, but ultimately it would feel like a massive weight being lifted off your shoulders.
Exactly. You are trading the high-friction anxiety of control for the low-friction power of trust and environmental design. And if you can manage to implement these practices, like simplifying your environment, staying radically present, aligning your work, and dropping the need to control others, it naturally funnels you into the final and arguably most difficult stanza of Chapter 8.
Right.
The text addresses the ultimate driver of modern burnout: competition.
Yes, the source notes refer to this as the secret sauce of the chapter.
The secret sauce.
So Mitchell translates it like this: when you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everybody will respect you.
That's a huge claim.
It's massive.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? Let's really dig into the mechanics of this, because this feels like a direct assault on the reality we actually live in. We exist in an economy and a social structure built entirely on comparison.
Everything is ranked.
Everything. We have performance reviews, we have social media metrics, we have market share. How on earth do you practice non-competition in a world where everyone else is aggressively keeping score? Don't you just get run over?
Well, this raises an important question about where that anxiety actually comes from. It comes from our modern definition of respect. We have been conditioned to believe that respect is like a finite resource. It's a trophy that you can only win by defeating someone else.
Right.
You get respect by having the better title, the bigger house, the superior argument. It's totally a zero-sum game. But Mitchell's translation points to a completely different mechanism. According to this philosophy, genuine respect is never won through conflict. It is a natural, unavoidable byproduct of authenticity.
A byproduct, meaning you don't manufacture it.
Right.
Let me try to wrap my head around this. Let's look at a concrete scenario, like a corporate performance review.
Good example.
If I walk into a review and I am aggressively competing with my coworker, like trying to prove why my numbers are better than theirs, pointing out their flaws to elevate myself, I am acting out of force.
And you are instantly perceived as a threat.
Oh.
When you act out of competitive force, you trigger the defensive mechanisms in everyone around you. They have to pull out their own weapons to defend their position on the ladder. The friction in the room just skyrockets.
Yeah, the tension goes way up.
But what happens if you walk into that same review anchored entirely in your own unique contributions? What if you clearly state what you achieved, what you learned, and where you want to grow without making a single comparison to anyone else in the office?
I guess.
Yeah.
You completely neutralize the threat.
Exactly.
Because if I'm not trying to take your spot on the ladder, your defenses around me can finally drop. I'm no longer the enemy.
Precisely. You become a person of true substance. The source notes emphasize that when you are constantly comparing yourself to external metrics, your sense of self-worth is entirely dependent on whoever happens to be winning at the moment.
You're just blowing in the wind.
You're a chameleon, constantly shifting your shape to compete. It's exhausting, and frankly, people can sense that insecurity. But when you are content to be simply yourself, like water, just being water, you drop out of that ego-driven power struggle.
Wow.
People know exactly who you are and where you stand. That deep comfort in your own skin, that undeniable consistency, naturally fosters respect. You aren't demanding they respect you by showing off. Respect flows to you because you are secure.
It's like opting out of a brutal game of tug of war.
Oh, that's a great image.
You're standing there, the culture is pulling on the other end of the rope with all its might, demanding that you compare your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel.
Yeah.
And instead of pulling harder, you just open your hands and drop the rope.
You just drop it.
The tension snaps. The conflict is over. You didn't win the game by being stronger. You won by realizing the game itself was the source of your exhaustion.
Dropping the rope is the perfect analogy for the transition from force to flow. It sounds passive to our modern ears, but in practice, it is incredibly radical. It requires an immense amount of courage to look at the metrics that society tells you matter. The titles, the acquisitions, the competitive victories, and decide that you're going to seek the low places instead.
Which brings us to the end of our journey today. We've covered a lot of ground, taking this 2,500-year-old wisdom and really stress testing it against our modern lives.
We really did.
We've explored how treating life like water offers a genuine mechanical blueprint for low-friction living. We've seen that seeking the low places isn't about failure, it's about finding the unshakable ground of humility.
Absolutely.
We've talked about decluttering our physical spaces to quiet our over-intellectualizing minds. We've examined the physical reality of being radically present, the genius of managing by environment rather than control, and finally, the profound relief of dropping the rope of endless comparison.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over. And this builds directly on the mechanics of the text we've discussed today.
Okay.
The source material emphasizes that by flowing to the low places that people disdain, those quiet spaces of humility, service, and stepping out of the spotlight water gains a strength that is described as persistent and unstoppable.
Persistent and unstoppable.
Right. Now think about our modern world. We are conditioned to associate unstoppable strength exclusively with aggression.
Oh, sure.
We associate it with dominance, with loudness, and with fighting tooth and nail to claw our way to the very top. But if this ancient text is right, we have it entirely backward. What if true, undeniable, unstoppable power in your life doesn't come from winning the race at all? What if the most unbreakable strength you can possibly possess comes from quietly, confidently occupying the spaces that everyone else is far too proud to touch?
Wow. That completely flips the script on how we measure the success of our days. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you go back out into your high-pressure, hyper-connected world today, we encourage you to look closely for where the water flows in your own life. Stop fighting gravity, drop the ropes, and see what happens. We'll see you next time.